3 weeks before Diana died, she called a friend in tears. "I saw my own funeral," she said. She had seen millions crying, streets filled with flowers, her sons walking behind her coffin. 3 weeks later, everything happened exactly as she had seen it. Disclaimer: this video explores reported dreams and premonitions from Diana's final weeks. These accounts are based on witness testimonies but cannot be independently verified. We present these stories respectfully, while acknowledging they remain in the realm of personal experience rather than documented fact. Before we explore these haunting final premonitions, please consider subscribing to the Diana Stories and hitting the like button. Your support helps us tell every aspect of Diana's extraordinary story. The summer of 1997 was supposed to be a time of happiness for Princess Diana. She was finally free from her marriage to Charles. She was dating Dodi Fayed, a relationship that brought her joy and excitement. She was planning a future that belonged to her alone, not to the royal family or public expectations. But beneath the surface happiness, something darker was happening. Diana was having dreams, terrible, vivid dreams that felt more real than ordinary nightmares. Dreams about death, about funerals, about her sons crying. Dreams that would prove to be devastatingly prophetic. The beginning of the nightmares. According to Diana's close friends, the disturbing dreams began in July 1997, about 6 weeks before her death. At first, they were vague and fragmented. Diana would wake up feeling anxious and afraid, but couldn't remember specific details. She mentioned to friends that she was sleeping poorly and having bad dreams. Rosa Monckton, one of Diana's closest friends, later recalled that Diana seemed increasingly troubled as July turned into August. During their last vacation together in Greece, Diana was unusually quiet and reflective. When Rosa asked her what was bothering her, Diana mentioned she'd been having nightmares, but didn't want to discuss details. Lucia Fletcher de Lima, another close friend, noticed the same change. Diana called her from France in early August and mentioned she wasn't sleeping well. "I keep having these terrible dreams. They feel so real, Lucia. I can't shake them." What Diana didn't fully explain to most of her friends was the specific content of these dreams. She feared they would think she was being dramatic or paranoid. But to a few trusted confidants, she described what she was seeing in these nightmares, and the details were chilling. The funeral dream.
The most disturbing dream, the one Diana described in her final phone calls to friends, involved her own funeral. In this dream, Diana saw herself from an outside perspective, as if she were watching a film of events after her death. She described seeing masses of people gathering in London. The streets were filled with flowers, mountains of bouquets piling up against palace gates. People were crying openly, grieving as if they'd lost someone they personally knew. The scale of public mourning in her dream was overwhelming and unprecedented. Diana saw Westminster Abbey filled with dignitaries, royals, and celebrities. She saw her coffin draped with the royal standard, surrounded by white flowers. The image was so clear, so specific, that it haunted her when she woke. Most painfully, Diana saw William and Harry in this dream. They were walking behind her coffin in a formal procession. William, at 15, was trying to be strong, his face a mask of control. Harry, only 12, looked devastated and lost. Diana described waking from this dream in tears, overwhelmed by the image of her sons grieving for her. She told one friend, "I saw them walking behind my coffin. They were so young, so hurt. I could feel their pain in my dream. It was the worst thing I've ever experienced." The phone call. 3 weeks before her death, Diana made a phone call that would later take on profound significance. She called Simone Simmons, her spiritual advisor and friend, in a state of deep distress. Diana was crying and could barely speak at first. When she calmed enough to explain, Diana described the dream in detail. She told Simone she had seen her own death and funeral with vivid clarity. Everything about the dream felt prophetic, not like an ordinary nightmare. Diana expressed a terrible conviction that what she'd seen was going to happen. Simone tried to comfort Diana, suggesting the dream reflected her anxiety and stress rather than any genuine premonition. Diana had been dealing with enormous pressure, the ongoing conflicts with the royal family, media harassment, concerns about Dodi's background and family, worries about her sons. These stresses could easily manifest as nightmares about death and loss. But Diana wasn't comforted. "This was different, Simone," she insisted. "This felt real. I felt like I was being shown what's going to happen. I'm going to die, and my boys will have to walk behind my coffin." Simone later revealed that she had been deeply concerned by Diana's state during this call. Diana seemed genuinely convinced something terrible was approaching. The level of detail in the dream and Diana's absolute certainty about its prophetic nature were disturbing.
The funeral dream wasn't the only disturbing vision Diana experienced in her final weeks. Friends later revealed Diana had described other nightmares with themes of death, danger, and loss. Diana dreamed about car crashes. In these dreams, she was in a vehicle that was out of control, speeding toward disaster. She could see the crash coming, but couldn't stop it. These dreams left her feeling helpless and terrified. She dreamed about being chased. Faceless pursuers followed her through dark spaces. She was running, trying to escape, but her legs wouldn't move fast enough. These dreams reflected Diana's real-life experience of being constantly pursued by paparazzi, but they took on a more sinister quality in her nightmares. Diana also dreamed about her sons being alone and unprotected. In these dreams, William and Harry were children again, calling for her, needing her, but she couldn't reach them. She would wake from these dreams with a terrible sense of urgency and fear for her son's well-being. Paul Burrell, Diana's butler and confidant, later described conversations where Diana mentioned feeling a sense of approaching doom. She didn't always frame it as specific dreams, but rather as a persistent feeling that something bad was coming. Burrell noticed Diana seemed more anxious than usual about her son's safety and future. The premonition letter. Diana's dreams and premonitions weren't entirely secret. She had written about her fears in the famous letter to Paul Burrell in October 1996, 10 months before her death. In this letter, Diana wrote that Charles was planning an accident in my car, brake failure, and serious head injury. While this letter predated the specific funeral dreams of summer 1997, it showed Diana had been experiencing premonitory fears for some time. Whether these were genuine psychic insights, rational assessments of real danger, or manifestations of anxiety and paranoia remains debatable. The letter demonstrated that Diana's mind was occupied with thoughts of her own death. She was imagining scenarios of how she might die, what might happen to her sons, and who might be responsible. These conscious fears could easily have fed into her unconscious mind, creating the vivid nightmares of her final weeks. Psychological explanations. From a psychological perspective, Diana's disturbing dreams have straightforward explanations. She was under enormous stress in the summer of 1997. The paparazzi were more aggressive than ever. Her relationship with Dodi was controversial and creating tension with the royal family. She worried constantly about William and Harry's well-being. This level of stress commonly produces nightmares. The brain processes fears and anxieties during sleep, creating scenarios that reflect our deepest worries. Diana's fears about her safety,
Her son's future, and the constant media harassment would naturally manifest as dreams about death and funerals. Additionally, Diana had a history of anxiety and depression. She had struggled with bulimia, self-harm, and suicidal thoughts. People with anxiety disorders often experience particularly vivid and disturbing nightmares. Diana's mental health struggles made her more vulnerable to stress-related bad dreams. The specificity of Diana's funeral dream can also be explained psychologically. Diana had attended numerous royal funerals and state ceremonies. She knew exactly what a royal funeral looked like, how it would be conducted, and what protocols would be followed. Her unconscious mind could easily construct a detailed funeral scene based on her existing knowledge and experience. The prophetic interpretation. Despite psychological explanations, some people believe Diana's dreams were genuinely prophetic. They point to the remarkable accuracy of what Diana described seeing in her funeral dream compared to what actually happened. When Diana died on August 31st, 1997, the public response was exactly as she had described in her dream. Millions of people did gather in London. Streets were filled with flowers, creating mountains of bouquets at palace gates. The scale of public mourning was unprecedented, shocking even to those who organized the funeral. Diana's funeral at Westminster Abbey matched the details she had described. Her coffin was draped with the royal standard and surrounded by white flowers. William and Harry did walk behind her in the funeral procession, looking devastated, just as Diana had seen in her dream. The accuracy of these details seems remarkable. How could Diana have predicted such specific elements unless she was genuinely seeing the future? Believers in premonitions argue this goes beyond anxiety-induced nightmares and represents genuine psychic insight. Some also point to Diana's spiritual interests. She consulted psychics, believed in astrology, and was open to metaphysical concepts. Perhaps Diana was naturally intuitive or psychically sensitive, able to perceive future events in her dreams. Her funeral dream might have been a genuine glimpse into what was approaching. similar historical cases. Diana's experience isn't unique in history. Many people have reported dreaming about their own deaths before dying. Abraham Lincoln famously dreamed about his own funeral shortly before his assassination. He described the dream to his wife and cabinet members, seeing his own body lying in state in the White House. Mark Twain dreamed about his brother's death in a riverboat accident with specific details that later came true. He saw his brother in a metal coffin with white flowers arranged in a specific pattern. When his brother actually died in a steamboat explosion, Twain witnessed the exact scene he had dreamed.
These cases suggest that premonitory dreams, while scientifically unexplained, occur across cultures and throughout history. Whether they represent genuine glimpses of the future or remarkable coincidences remains debated, but the phenomenon is well documented. Diana's final days. In the final days before her death, Diana's mood seemed to shift. Several friends later commented that she appeared to have accepted something. She seemed calmer, but also melancholy, as if she were saying goodbye without explicitly stating it. During her last phone call with her sons on August 30th, 1997, the night before she died, Diana told William and Harry she loved them and missed them. Nothing about this conversation was unusual. Diana always expressed love for her sons. But in retrospect, some wonder if Diana sensed this would be their last conversation. Diana also made arrangements in her final weeks that suggest she was thinking about death. She updated her will, confirmed her wishes regarding her possessions, and had important conversations with her lawyer. While these could be normal administrative tasks, some interpret them as Diana preparing for what she subconsciously knew was coming. The tragedy unfolds. When Diana died in the early morning hours of August 31st, 1997, in the Pont de l'Alma tunnel in Paris, her dream began to come true. The public response was immediate and overwhelming. People gathered outside Kensington Palace, Buckingham Palace, and other locations associated with Diana, leaving flowers and crying openly. Within days, the mountains of flowers Diana had seen in her dream were real. The spontaneous public mourning reached a scale that surprised everyone, including the royal family. Millions of people felt personal grief over Diana's death, as if they had lost someone they actually knew. Diana's funeral on September 6, 1997, matched the details she had described. Westminster Abbey was filled with mourners. Her coffin was draped with the royal standard and covered with white flowers. And heartbreakingly, William and Harry did walk behind their mother's coffin through the streets of London. The image of those two young princes walking behind Diana's coffin, trying to maintain composure while clearly devastated, became one of the most iconic and painful images of the late 20th century. It was exactly what Diana had seen in her dream, and exactly what had terrified her most.
Saw what happened, and the remarkable accuracy of events matching her descriptions. These factors seem to suggest something beyond ordinary anxiety dreams. Arguments against genuine premonition include the psychological explanations for stress-induced nightmares, Diana's existing knowledge of royal funeral protocols that could inform dream content, the self-fulfilling nature of fear causing anxiety that might have contributed to the circumstances of her death, and the lack of scientific evidence for precognitive dreams. Perhaps the truth lies somewhere between these extremes. Diana may have had legitimate reasons to fear for her safety, making her anxious dreams partly rational assessment. But the specific nature of her funeral dream seems remarkably prophetic, suggesting either extraordinary intuition or something beyond ordinary psychological processes. The impact on those left behind. For Diana's friends who heard about these dreams before her death, the aftermath was deeply troubling. Simone Simmons felt terrible guilt, wondering if she should have taken Diana's fears more seriously and done more to protect her. Rosa Monckton and Lucia Flecha de Lima were haunted by their final conversations with Diana and the anxieties she had expressed. Paul Burrell carried the weight of Diana's premonition letter and her expressed fears. He later published this information partly to honor Diana's wishes, but also because he felt the world needed to know Diana had predicted her own death. Whether this was appropriate or exploitative remains debated. For William and Harry, learning that their mother had dreamed about her own funeral and worried about them walking behind her coffin must have been devastatingly painful. It added another layer of tragedy to an already unbearable loss, suggesting Diana had suffered anticipatory grief for her sons in her final weeks. Conclusion: did Diana genuinely see her own funeral in prophetic dreams, or did her anxiety and stress create nightmares that coincidentally matched what later occurred? We cannot know with certainty. The evidence allows for both interpretations. What we can know is that Diana's final weeks were shadowed by fear and premonitions of death. Whether these were psychic insights, rational threat assessments, or psychological symptoms of extreme stress, they were real to Diana. She experienced genuine terror about what might happen to her and her sons. The tragedy is that Diana's fears came true. She did die, suddenly, at 37. Her sons did walk behind her coffin. Millions did mourn her in unprecedented ways. Whether she saw this coming through dreams or simply feared it as a possibility, the outcome was the same. A vibrant, complicated, beloved woman died too young, leaving enormous grief in her wake. Diana's funeral dreams remind us that she was acutely aware of her own mortality in her final weeks. She thought about death, worried about her son's future without her, and imagined the aftermath of her potential absence. Anxious, reveal a woman grappling with the very real dangers of her position and the very human fear of leaving her children motherless. Final disclaimer: this video explored reported dreams and premonitions from Diana's final weeks based on accounts from her friends and confidants. These experiences cannot be independently verified and remain in the realm of personal testimony. We present these stories to explore all aspects of Diana's final summer, while acknowledging that questions about premonitions and prophetic dreams have no definitive scientific answers.